If you love easy Easter crafts and decorating for the spring, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Katie from Lady Red Crafting, and today I'm sharing some fun and simple Easter DIYs. Grab these two pieces from the Dollar Tree, this adorable bunny and a wood rounder from the Crafter Square section. I'm going to start out by removing the hanger from the rounder. Next, we're going to take our Waverly Antique Wax and I'm going to stain both sides of the rounder. The reason why I'm staining both sides is because sometimes the stain comes out differently on either side, and I wanted to make sure I had a choice on which side I wanted for the front and which side I wanted for the back. Now go ahead and set that rounder aside and let's grab that adorable bunny. I did take the hanger out on this, and I'm starting out by painting this bunny with my Waverly Plaster Chalk Paint. I did this because I wanted more of an off-white look for my bunny, but if you like the white look, you don't need to paint the bunny if you don't want to. Now, once our paint has completely dried, I'm going to take my Mod Podge and Matte, and I'm going to do a coat of Mod Podge over the top of the entire bunny. And I do a thicker layer of the Mod Podge for this piece because we're going to be laying over the top some lace, and I really want to make sure that sticks really nicely to our bunny. Now, while the Mod Podge is still wet, I am going to lay this lace panel over the top of our bunny. Then I'm going to lay some cling wrap over the top of the lace. And then using my roller, I'm going to roll everything in place and make sure that the lace is really nice and glued on to this bunny. Now, once everything has dried completely, I did come back in with more Mod Podge and I did a sealing coat over the top of our lace. Now, to remove the excess lace, I had to come in with some small scissors here and I just cut as closely as I could to the bunny. This did take a little while because I was really trying to trim this up nicely around our bunny. Now let's go back to our rounder. Before we do anything else, I am going to add my hanger back to the rounder because I do not want to forget this step because it'll be a lot harder to add it once we add our bunny. Next, we're going to grab that bunny that we have all prepped and I'm going to figure out where I want to position her on our rounder. And it is going to be hanging off the rounder a little bit. You can see that the ears are going to pop out of the rounder. So what I'm doing here is we're going to flip the rounder over and I'm going to take a pencil and on the back side of the bunny, we're going to draw some lines because I want to make sure I don't accidentally put any glue up there on the back side of our bunny. So now we're going to separate our two pieces and using my Type Bond Quick and Thick glue, I'm going to add that glue to the back side of our bunny. Then I'm going to add just a little bit of hot glue in between some of the lines of the Type Bond glue to give us that quick, immediate hold for our bunny. Now we're just going to attach our two pieces together. Now I did grab another piece from the Dollar Tree. It's this beautiful lavender pick and all I needed was one lavender pick. So even with the price increase, I think that this was worth it, $1.75 for us to be able to add this pick to our piece. And I'm just taking my pliers here and I'm just going to go ahead and separate all of the pieces off of the pick. So before we glue our flowers onto our piece, I do like to do a quick dry run and lay everything out first. This just allows me to arrange the flowers in the best way possible. Some of these stems had like 3 pieces of lavenders and some had 2, so I was able to even everything out first before I grabbed my hot glue. Then all we have to do is hot glue these little flowers into place. I'm adding the hot glue, then the flowers, and I'm using my makeup applicator. I get these from Dollar Tree, and this makes it really easy for me to press that flower into the hot glue without burning my fingers. Now, once our flowers are in place, I'm going to take a little bit of hot glue and some reindeer moss, and we're going to cover up the hot glue mess on the bottom of our piece. This reindeer moss is the perfect camouflage to hide that hot glue and looks like grass at the same time. Now, once you're satisfied with the flowers on the bottom, for our very last step, I am going to hot glue a little bow on top of our bunny. And by placing the bow where we place it, it's going to cover those little holes on the top of the bunny so you don't even see them. I just love how this rounder turns out. This is such a beautiful spring rounder for the Easter season. Let me know what you think about this rounder down in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this video, please leave a bunny emoji. Thank you. I absolutely love how this bunny turned out. All you need is a piece of scrap wood, 2 carrots from the Dollar Tree. I used one of my napkins from my stash and some ribbon. For our first step, I'm going to stain our board. I'm using my Waverly Antique Wax, and then I'm going to paint a nice coat over the whole entire board. Then using a baby wipe, I'm going to wipe off any excess wax. And now that our board is completely stained, I am going to set that aside to dry for a little bit. Let's go to those cute little carrots that I got at the Dollar Tree. Now, if you can't find these carrots, you could also maybe cut this out with a piece of cardboard or use paint sticks and shape them in the way that you would like for your ears. So now that our carrots are on a paintable surface, I'm taking my Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster, and we're going to paint a nice coat of paint over the top of these carrots. Now, once that has dried, I'm going to flip these carrots over, and we're going to stain the backside of these carrots using that Waverly Antique Wax again, and doing the same method where we paint them, and then we'll wipe it clean with a baby wipe. Now, once we are satisfied with the backside of the carrots, I'll flip these back over, and I'm going to take out my Mod Podge. And this is my matte Mod Podge. I tend to grab this one the most, and we're just going to go ahead and paint a nice coat of Mod Podge on the top of those carrots. And before we go any further, I am going to finish the back sides of these carrots by taking a little bit of plaster paint and a dry brush. And I'm just going to dry brush a little bit of that plaster paint on the back side of these carrots just to give it a whitewashed look. Now, while that paint is drying, let's go ahead and prep our napkin. I absolutely love this napkin. I got this recently on Amazon, so I'll put a link for it down in my description box below. But it reminds me so much of spring, and I just think it's a perfect little addition to this little bunny. And all I'm doing here is I'm taking off those back 2 layers of our napkin, and I usually use a little piece of painter's tape to help me assist getting that last layer off. Now that our napkin is prepped, we are going to take 2 little pieces of this napkin and we're going to lay them over the top of the white painted side of these carrots. And once we have the napkin positioned the way that we would like, I'm going to go ahead and grab a piece of parchment paper and layer that right on top. Next, I'm going to take my hot iron. This is just a little heat press that I like, and I iron that napkin into place. This is going to heat up that Mod Podge and allow the napkin to stick onto our piece. Then we're just going to remove that piece of parchment paper, and once that has been removed, I'm going to grab my zip sander, but a sanding block, an emery board, or piece of sanding paper will do the same thing. I'm going to sand in a downward motion, and this is going to give a nice clean edge around that carrot. Now, while we have a quick moment, I want to tell you all about this playlist I'm a part of this month. Easter DIY Inspirations. I co-host this every month with my good friend Loli at Loli D Creations. Our guest host this month is Marika at Marika Creations. This playlist is all about Easter, and there is so many great creators participating, so check out the description box. There's a link down below. Let them know that I sent you and give them some love. Thank you so much for watching, and back to our video. So now that we have all of that excess napkin sanded off of our little carrots, our little ears are ready to seal. I'm going to take these outside, and using my Rust-Oleum matte clear enamel spray, I'm going to go ahead and seal the decoupage in. While that is drying, I did grab my plaster colored Waverly chalk paint, and we're going to take our dry brush and we're going to dry brush our little block that we stained earlier. This will match the backside of our ears, so everything looks great on both sides. Next, we need to paint our nose. I have this little heart that I had in my stash, and I'm just going to paint it with my Folk Art matte pink paint. And for our whiskers, I am going to be using a little bit of twine, but I did want to burn off some of those little frays on the end, so I am doing that first before I cut them out. Now, to cut out my whiskers, I am going to use that twine and measure it up against my piece of wood. Once I have the size down that I would like to use, I'm going to cut 4 more out for a total of 5 whiskers. Now, to attach my whiskers and my nose, I'm going to be using my Titebond Quick and Thick glue. I'm going to add a little dot of glue onto my piece of wood, and then I'm just going to lay my whiskers out the way that I would like them. Once I have them positioned, I'm going to take that little nose and add that right on top of the whiskers to secure everything in place, and then I'll let that glue dry. Next, I'm going to grab my paint pen, and I'm just going to draw some eyes onto my bunny. Now let's go ahead and add our ears to our bunny. To start out, I'm taking my miter shears and I'm going to trim off the tops of these carrots. Now, to add the ears to our bunny, I'm going to flip our bunny over. And using my hot glue and a little bit of my Titebond Quick and Thick glue, I'm going to add that glue to the back side of the bunny, and then I'm going to place the ears on top. And now that we have both ears attached to our bunny, here is what she's looking like. So cute. But let's add one final touch. We're going to use the ribbon that I had out earlier, and I made a nice little bow, and I'm going to hot glue that bow right to the top of our bunny. And now our cute little bunny is ready to display. I just love how she turns out. She is absolutely adorable. Let me know what you think about this bunny down in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this content, please consider hitting that like or subscribe button. Thank you. For this fun DIY, I picked up these eggs from the Dollar Tree, and these fun little cutouts I'm just going to take and tape them down to a paintable surface. Next, we're going to paint each one of these eggs. One of the eggs I'm going to be painting with my Waverly chalk paint in the color Maize, and then the other egg I will be using my Waverly chalk paint in the color Plaster. And while I have my paint out, I'm actually going to grab 4 little hearts from Valentine's Day, and I'm just going to tape these down to the paintable surface as well. We're going to take these little wood hearts. I did get these at Dollar Tree this year, so if you have them in your stash, you'd be able to use them for this project. You might even be able to find them still on clearance. And I'm just going to tape those down, and we'll paint 2 of them with the color plaster and 2 of them with the color maize. Now I'm going to grab my Mod Podge, and I'm going to paint a nice coat of Mod Podge over the top of the plastered color egg and hearts. Now while that piece is drying, we're going to move this aside, and I'm going to prep my napkin. I have this beautiful napkin I absolutely love. I used it about 3 years ago in one of my videos, and I just love this napkin. It's so cheery and happy. And if I can find a link for it, I will put that down in my description box below. But when I did get this 3 years ago, I believe I got this on Amazon. So to prep the napkin, all I'm doing is taking a little piece of painter's tape, and I'm going to use that to remove the back 2 layers of our napkin. Now going back to our eggs, I'm just going to remove those from our paintable surface. And we're going to start out by taking the little egg and the 2 hearts that are painted in the color plaster with the Mod Podge on them. And we're going to use that napkin that we prepped, and I'm just going to lay it over the top of all 3 pieces. Then I grabbed a little piece of parchment paper, and I laid that over the top of my napkin. Now all I'm going to do is take my heat press, and I'm going to iron that napkin right onto those pieces. Now, once our napkin is secure, I'm going to go ahead and just remove that piece of parchment paper. And then I'm going to tear off any excess napkin. I'm not going to get too close to the pieces because for that, I am going to be using my zip sander. But I felt like this was just a little bit easier to get everything separated, so it'd be easier to sand. And I like using this little sander here because it gives a really nice finished edge to my pieces. And I think I probably use this zip sander almost every time I'm crafting. So it is a very good purchase. It's like $7. It's not bad. And I use it a lot. So if you're in the market for some new tools, this is one of my must-have items that I use for crafting. But if you do not have a zip sander, you can just use a small piece of sandpaper, an emery board, or a sanding block that you can get those at the Dollar Tree sometimes. And that works just as well. Now, once we have our 3 pieces with our decoupage on there, to make sure that we have a wrinkle-free finish, I'm going to be using this matte clear enamel, and I'll be taking these pieces outside, and I'm going to spray them down to seal everything in. Now, once our decoupage pieces are sealed, I am going to grab a small piece of wood. And this was an old coaster that I had in my stash, and I'm just using it to cut some little triangles out. And I'm using my miter shears for this, but if you have a really good set of scissors, you might be able to use those. Or if you have some garden clippers from the Dollar Tree in your craft room, that might be another piece of equipment that you could use to cut your pieces. And once I have my triangles cut, I am going to paint them with my Waverly chalk paint in the color pumpkin. Now that we have all of our pieces prepped, I am grabbing my Titebond Quick and Thick glue, and we're going to glue these little hearts to the bottom of our eggs. We're going to make these adorable little chicks out of these. And once we have our little hearts attached, I'm going to use that same glue, and we're going to add our beaks. Now to add some eyes. For our first little chick, the one that we painted, I'm going to be using a paint pen here, and I'm going to be painting some black dots on for some eyes. And for our decoupaged egg, I didn't want the paint to get blended in with our napkin because that is a pretty busy napkin. So I decided to go with googly eyes. Not my favorite, but they did turn out pretty cute on here. So I do like how this turns out. So I'm going to add those using my Titebond Quick and Thick glue. And then while that was drying, I did notice that the black eyes on the one had a little bit more of a plain look. So I decided to add a little bit of blue paint to the eyes just to give it a little more dimension. Next, I'm going to take some of this yarn, and I did get this yarn at Dollar Tree. And I am going to feed that through the top of my baby chick here. And I am going to be just adding 4 or 5-inch strips of yarn to my baby chick. So I'm stringing that through. I'll tie a knot at the top, and then I'll cut the string, and then I'll do that again. And so this is going to give our little baby chick some hair. So I'll come back in and I'll just feed that yarn through, and I'm going to add 4, maybe 5 strings to this little baby chick. Now, once our baby chick has a whole bunch of hair here, I'm going to come in and comb it with my comb. And I just keep a comb in my craft room that I use for different things like this. And I'm going to take all of that fuzz away, and it kind of spreads everything out. Once I'm satisfied with all of the hair, I'm going to come in with my scissors and I'm going to trim it up just so it looks like a little ponytail on top of my little chick. Then I went ahead and repeated the same steps on the other little chick. And now for our final step. For this step, I'm going to be using some hot glue, and I'm just going to put a strip of hot glue along the back side of our baby chick, and I'm adding a little stake to each one of these chicks. This is going to make it a lot easier to display because I'm going to put them in with some flowers. And now our little baby chicks are ready to display. I just love how these turned out. They're a perfect addition to a potted plant, a bouquet of flowers, or even coming out of a Easter basket. Let me know what you think about these baby chicks down in the comments below. Thank you so much for crafting with me today. I hope these 3 easy Easter DIYs gave you some fun inspiration for your spring decorating. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe so you do not miss any future projects. You can also check out the Easter DIY inspiration playlist. The link is below in the description box. And as always, please remember, craft more, stress less.